I think the problem here in the United States is corruption more than it is the actual policies themselves. So this is where, because we look at like Denmark and Sweden and those real capitalist, socialist, hybrid kind of governments, and they just have also the lowest rates of corruption. So when they tax their population, people who are taxed actually see their tax dollars work for them. Whereas like in California, and I live in Los Angeles. I've lived there for a couple of decades. I live now in Boise, Idaho. That's where I was born and raised. So I, see both sides of, the red state, Idaho being one of the reddest states in the union, if not the reddest state in the union, and California being one of the most liberal states in the union, and Los Angeles in particular. And I don't think, I mean, I owned a house in LA, lived in LA. I don't think it was a failure. I don't think LA is a failure. I don't think California is a failure. I think it's different. I think what fails California and fails Californians is the corruption in the politics. You got all of these politicians that get in there and then they tax everybody. And then you just don't ever see your tax dollars actually working for you. And that's, I think, the big beef with Californians is we don't mind. There's a lot we don't mind. I mean, we love living there. We love the weather. We love the food. We love the diversity, which brings the great food. We love all the sports, all the entertainment. We love all of that. And, I mean, when people would ask me, like, why do you live in LA? And I just say, I love it. I mean, I love LA. I still love LA. But the issue is the taxation, not actually the politicians being corrupt and not actually using the taxes correctly. I didn't bitch about my taxes. I was fine paying them. The issue was, what are you doing with my tax dollars, though? That was the real issue. It wasn't how much you're taxing me, what you say. We said, we're going to give you a bunch of money. We voted for it to give them a bunch of money to end homelessness, to put billions of dollars into homelessness. Nothing got done because the politicians basically got in bed with a bunch of contractors, basically squandered the money. Contractors came in, big money capitalists came in and said, we're bidding on this housing project. We're bidding on this housing project. All the money went wasted. They inflated the cost of the housing projects. The money ended up being wasted. People were just looking to make money off the government. And instead, we ended up not getting our money's worth. And that's, I think, the big beef with the high taxes versus like I live in Idaho now and, I grew up here and we have low taxes, but there's also, I mean, there's things that are missing in Republican states that you don't get that don't happen in the blue states. I mean, I think there are things that are better in both. I can't say I like one more than the other, to be honest with you. I think corruption's the issue. So I don't know if it's because I'm curious, what are your thoughts on like Social Security, or, I mean, maybe not Social Security because everybody wants to, shit on Social Security lately, but let's say like public education or, firefighters or police forces. I mean, are you for like, where does in your mind the socialism end? Like where is it okay and where is it not? Because I think a lot of people, when like public education was introduced, or even Social Security, which is still a major safety net for most of our seniors, if not all of them, um, you know, uh, people screamed about socialism, and yet those, I think, are beneficial for society, and I don't know if people really want to get rid of those. So, I mean, maybe public grocery stores and some, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's, like, maybe people just need to adjust mentally to it rather than, do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
are you wanting to get rid of public education for like
no,
kindergartners?
I don't think people should adjust to it. They should just reject it. Outright reject
Okay.
socialism. No adjustments should be made to accept socialism. Uh, when Mandami says that I'm going to tax the white population in certain zip codes, and he needs more money for the pet projects that he wants to implement, the message is clear that 1% of the population in New York City pays over 50% of the taxes right now. You're driving them out. They can pick up and leave. They will go to another state. Now, when you talk about California and you said that corruption is a problem, who's been running California for the past 20 years since Reagan? I think 25 years or 30 years or whatever. It's been the Democrats. It's been the
Yeah, but
center.
Republicans are just as corrupt.
You
They're
know,
all
I'm,
corrupt,
I'm not
left and
defending.
right. It
I'm not
doesn't
defending.
matter.
No. I'm not defending the Republicans. I'm defending the Republican principles. When the
Mm.
founding fathers established this country, they gave us a government with enumerated powers, and the best thing that we can do to help this nation be more prosperous is to bring the government within the confines of the Constitution. Right now, both in liberal red states and blue states, but blue states mainly, the government is operating outside of the enumerated powers of the Constitution. And that's what has given them so much power and so much money that corruption to them has become part of their being. And I agree with you that we can do a better job in managing the taxpayers' money. And we should do a better job in managing the taxpayers' money. But why should the public system, the education should have the government should have monopoly when it comes to educating our kids? Why shouldn't we have a program called Money Follows the Child? That let's say that PS 83 is failing and my kid is attending PS 83. Why shouldn't I be able to take that amount of money that we spend per pupil in that school and take my kids to a school that is not failing? Why should it be a public school? Why shouldn't I be able to send my kids to a charter school? Who refuses to approve charter schools in these areas? It is the teachers union and the Democrats, because they know that if you have a prosperous society, they the biggest fear that the Democrats and the liberals is that prosperity through liberty. If people become prosperous, they become obsolete because they don't have the underclass that they are trying to create. Now, the educational system shouldn't be public. We should have a combination of others. I mean, why shouldn't we be able to take our kids to a Catholic school or religious school for the same amount of money property taxes that we pay for public schools? We should be able to pick up that money and take our kids to any school of our choice besides the public school. I think
Yeah.
that give people the options, because
Yeah.
once we establish monopoly over one field and the government has monopoly, in this case education system, they are failing us. You just said that China is doing better than us. Why is China doing better than us when it comes to educating their kids?
Well,
We're
they don't
failing
have
them.
choices.
Yeah.
They're
You know,
still doing better. So I mean, I don't know if
you
the
know,
choice is
I,
the thing that's going to
I,
make us better.
I see a lot of them coming to study in our private institutions in the United
Yeah,
States,
but that's
mostly private institutions. So why
right.
shouldn't we invest in private institutions? And I don't mean that the government should invest in private institutions. I think that should be left completely private. But I should have the option of using my tax money, my to educate my kids in a school of my choice, not the government dictated one. And this is where the educational system should be limited in the United States, because it's got too much power in providing misinformation and almost hatred to our kids and shaping them into little almost anti-Americans and putting them out there in the field that they cannot survive with the education that they are getting, because they are much more interested in talking about 15 genders that exist out there based on, or talking about how bad America was because of slavery, or shaping our kids not to think critically, but they are telling our kids actually what to think. And this is where the educational system, the public educational system, is failing our kids. And that's why I believe that we should have options, including, a program that I would call, if I had the power to do that, money follows the child. Let's take our kids from failing schools to non-failing schools.
I don't have children, but I don't want my tax dollars back because I don't want to live in a stupid society. I mean, I'm totally fine paying taxes and supporting other kids, other people's children being educated. And I think if you start going down that path, I hear this argument all the time of like, we want to be able to take our tax dollars and put it into a different school. And I just say, no, because do I get my tax dollars back so I can go buy a Ferrari? I mean, how does that, how does that work? Because I don't have kids. So why should I have to pay for your kids then? And
No,
the
but we do
problem,
that. We do that every day, because even when I retire or my kids graduated from college and they are on their own now, I still pay property taxes because I want to make sure that other families should be able to educate their kids. But when we talk about money follows the child, it's
I mean,
just an
but a lot
option
of
that
people
we
are
should
just
have.
gonna say, like, if the fundamental reason is because I wanna be able to choose what I do with my tax dollars, then we just shouldn't have taxes, like, at all. I mean, it should just be spend your money, donate your money to the fire department if you want to. Donate your money to the police department if you want to. Or
The,
maybe
the
we live in a
government,
society where the fire
the government.
department shows up and your house is on fire and the fire department says, "We're only gonna put it out if you can pay." Yeah, so
No,
you
no,
should give us your
no,
money first.
look, I don't see anyone who would want to move to that extreme, because you're going to need the fire department, we're going to need the police department, we're going to need the
Right.
military, and that is money well spent, no question about it. The contention point would be education, because we have seen our education actually lowering its standards when it comes to graduating our kids, because we have people who are graduating from high school who cannot read their diplomas. We're
Right.
doing
But
something
that's
wrong.
but what's causing that? I mean,
The,
to go I mean, the government, I don't think is
it,
controlling
it
that's
is
not
the
really the
government.
government.
It
Well,
is the
not
government.
really. Not really. It's not like the big government because actually school boards run yes, it's a government thing because people run for school boards, but they're local. I mean, that is, if you've got a problem with the way your kids are being educated in your local system, that is on you, right? I mean, that is your community. That is who your community,
You
your
know,
local school board is hiring. That is that's not coming from like a top-down directive from our communist
well,
government up top, right? That's how the people are feeling, and that's why they're teaching kids these things within your own
well,
community.
Well, the community, well, they do have some power, but when you look at the Board of Education, New York City, for example, I mean, there are 1.1 million children being educated by the public educational system, and we spend about 25,000 a year per pupil to educate one of those students there. Now,
Yeah.
25,000. If you spend that and you compare that to 8,000, 9,000 that you would spend in a private institution for the same level, and you get a greater education for less money. I think it's nothing wrong with us looking at those options as Americans, that maybe a private institution can do better when it comes to educating our kids than a public institution. Have both options, but do not penalize one and reward the other. We have been rewarding failure in our educational system for a long time, and that's why the
Yeah.
other nations may catch up and actually supersede us, and they may do that unless we reform the educational system. The teachers union is not willing to do that. We know that because every time that something comes up to have more charter schools, they are the loudest voice in the room that they are against charter schools. And charter
Yeah.
schools would do very well in certain communities that can barely, attend other schools but public education.
Yeah, I mean, the education one stuff. I mean, people definitely have a choice. I mean, they can go to private schools. They just have to pay, and then I understand that people want their tax dollars back and to go toward that. But then I say, well, then give me my tax dollars back because I don't want to have to educate your rotten little children, you know.
Uh,
but um, so I know that these issues are difficult to solve. I think though where we do agree on this is I agree with you that fundamentally capitalism can work great and beautifully. I don't think there's I think the issue is culture and values more than anything. I think that's really what it boils down to is culture and values. And I think when we have a society that value like on one hand, we've got a society that values money over anything. And that is, like you said, people in Italy or people in the Scandinavian countries, they value different things. And it's true, they totally value different things. They don't value keeping up with the Joneses, the big houses, I mean, the Italians like nice cars, but it's not, but you don't, but it's not, the value system is different in how they view their homes, how they view what they should drive, their clothing, like all of that is very different, especially in the Scandinavian countries. Um, so the value system is different. We've got a value system here that values money. And unfortunately, we do have a lot of people that value money so much that they're willing to stomp on anybody to get it. They don't care. They're willing to build the big corporations and just drain everybody around them or roboticize everything so that everybody loses their jobs. They just don't care. They're just there to make a lot of money. And that's a cultural thing that, for example, hyper capitalist Japan does not have. Hyper capitalist Germany does not have. They have an ethics, like their CEOs, for example, in Japan, it is unethical for them to make the gobs of money that our CEOs make over here. They put a cap on it in Japan. Naturally, that's not because the government does it to them. It's because of their own value system and their culture puts that cap on them. There's nothing stopping them legally or government wise. It's just their own values. So on one hand, we got a value where we've got a lot of greed and a lot of that. And then on the other hand, we got a lot of laziness, right? We got a cultural problem with people that just want to take, they don't want to put out effort, they're really lazy, or they think that they can get rich like being Instagram models or playing basketball or like, being artists or doing, women's studies in college. And, it's like, what are you going to do with that job? What are you going to do with that degree? Like we have a culture problem, I think more than we have a government problem. So it's like, I don't know so I guess my point is I don't know if it matters if we're more socialist, democrat, capitalist, or if we're capitalist. What matters it's the values that we have to fix the values.
Well, we started destroying these values, if we want to call them traditional or family values, in the 1960s when we started providing welfare for people, started rewarding people for doing nothing. Right now, if you live in the state of Connecticut, for example, you would make about 45,000 a year if you are on welfare, but you have to be a single mother. Now, the definition of single mother, we can take forever trying to explain that. How can you be a single mother 3 times or 4 times in a row? I mean, we don't know who the fathers of these kids are. But why? Why should they have the incentive of going to work if we're giving them free housing, $40,000 a year, free health care? They pretty much drive better cars than we do sometimes, even though they're collecting welfare. So these are
Right.
things that I think we have made mistakes in the past when we told people that you don't have to work hard to pursue the American dream. There are other ways of doing it. Now, as far as people or CEOs making millions and millions in their positions, look, I fear the government when they start getting involved in corporations. We should have I believe that it should be a cultural thing, as you said, that maybe they should be more, generous when it comes to rewarding their employees. I have no problems with that. But at the end, there is a contract, there's an understanding between the individual who's working for that corporation, and these billionaires are making other millionaires because of what they provide, the services that they provide, the products that they provide, people that they employ. Um, the government shouldn't place a cap on anything when it comes to capitalism, because then if the government grants you a right or a privilege, that can be modified anytime by the government, that can be
Yeah.
removed by the government. Where does it stop? And this is a challenge that we can have in a free society. This is a discussion that can, it's more philosophies, more theology. Maybe we have lost maybe that sense that we don't need all of these things. But if the
Mhm.
government tells me that you don't need it, there's a problem when the government says you don't need it, I'm taking it, and I can do anything I want to do with it. So this is where we cannot allow that line to be crossed, where the government gets involved in dictating the outcome or in dictating the results of your job and what you deserve or what you should be making. Because every time that the government gets involved in this, usually the result at the end is disastrous, because these politicians, these so-called leaders, they are much more interested in gathering and garnishing more power to rule over us than providing for the citizens of their districts or their states sometimes. And it's unfortunate, but I think that it's a struggle that is going to remain in the United States for years to come. But the more restrictions we put on rewarding people for doing nothing and living at the expense of taxpayers, I think the better the society would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it is the incentive is what's being incentivized. And I think you're right. Like if you're just getting everything for free, then why work? Why be a productive member of society? Why change? And that's a huge problem. That does have to change. And maybe
I,
maybe we can incentivize working and say, look, we will give you free childcare for your kids. We'll give you even education for your kids. We'll even give you, housing stipends or all these things, but it is all tied to work. Like if you don't work, you suddenly don't get any of these things. And if you work, then you get these things. Like
I
it's tied incentivizing that maybe.
Absolutely. And if I may give you an example, when my brothers and I came to United States, we landed at JFK, and they brought in an interpreter because we came from a refugee camp, and the church was taking us in to do the processing, and the processing took place in Detroit, actually, Michigan. The interesting thing was that we were asked if we wanted to receive certain benefits. We didn't know what welfare was. But they said if you sign these papers, you'll receive certain benefits without doing anything. I mean, we were encouraged from the moment we came to the United States to become government dependent. And that
Right.
is the
Okay.
danger that we face in our society. Dependency is dangerous. And we have created such a dependency in our nation that it's almost 50% of the population right now that one way or another is getting something from the government. The government has no money. We pay the government's money, and they pay these people for doing nothing. And I think a reform like Clinton did it years ago, I think, it's overdue.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that people, the incentivization of just sit here and do nothing and be a government leech, that's well, and for one, politically it works in the favor of Democrats, right? Then
Yeah.
people keep voting Democrat because they want to keep getting those free things. And so I mean, I do definitely don't agree with like what is happening, and it absolutely needs to change. So I think we're in more agreement than we're not actually on this. I'm just with Memdani. I'm just kind of like, oh well, you know what? Let just throw the Molotov cocktail into the system and see what happens. It's how I felt about Donald Trump. I was like, so what? Let the guy win. let's see what happens. He's different. He says he's gonna do all these different things. Like, let's see what he does. And same with Memdani. Just okay, let's just see what the guy does. I mean, but I would like to see the culture of our country change. And that is, I was just looking up right now, why is it that people in Sweden and Denmark even work at all? Like, why do they work? If they're getting so much for free, why are they working? And the answer is actually it's cultural. They have a strong work ethic in their culture. People would look down on them if they didn't work. There's a cultural shame that would come from not being a productive member of society. And we have a lot, we don't have that in this country very much, right? There's not a whole lot of shame on not working. And that might also, again, I think most of it's cultural, but I don't
Sure.
know how we fix that. And I don't think the government should fix it. That's for sure. I agree with you on that. 1000%. The government shouldn't be involved in that. That's up to us. Peter, what a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this conversation a lot, actually. So thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate
Where
it.
should where should people go to find you and get your? We do have the link down below to your book. Is there anywhere else you want people to go to find you?
It's just peterlamage.com. That's the website. All the social media, things are there.
Okay.
So
All right.
peterlamage.com.
Peter, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.